What you need right here. What's happening, people? So Poopy Strong asked me to put this up. This video is on Canelo Alvarez. The recent news that Canelo Alvarez has sued the Zone as well as they have sued. He has a lawsuit against Goldenboy. And the reason why this lawsuit has come about, I've listened to various people give their takes on it, but the lawsuit is as a result of the following. So the Zone, Golden Boy, Canelo is actually contracted to Golden Boy, and it is Golden Boy who has this business relationship with the Zone. So what happens is if the Zone has to purse out some money to Golden Boy, that's who they purse out, and the Golden Boy then purses out the money to Canelo. That's how it works with this agreement, this contractual agreement. I believe it was it 15 fights, 14 fights, 13 fights, 12 fights, something like that, over the space of 5 years or something like that. It was supposed to be, and it was 300 and something million dollars. So Canelo was contracted to get $40 million per fight, pretty much. That's how it breaks down. Now, what has happened recently is that Canelo has been trying to face certain opponents. He was supposed to face Billy Joe Saunders early this year. Then COVID-19 came, and he therefore had to look for another opponent. When COVID-19 ended, Canelo wanted to have an opponent this year. Now, the agreement between DAZN and Golden Boy was that Golden Boy would bring out premier opponents. They would face premier opponents. Canelo would face at least one premier opponent every single year. So he started off in 2018. I think it was the end of 2018, something like that. He faced, I can't remember the dude's name, for a secondary, we call it a secondary championship title. That's what it's called now. And you guys know who the guy is. It's a 168-pounder guy. I can't remember his name. And then he proceeded in 2019 to face two opponents on the Zone's card. One was Danny Jacobs, and he was the IBF middleweight champion of the world. And so Canelo picked up the IBF title. So Canelo now had 3 titles, world titles. And at the end of the year, he also faced Sergey Kovalev, who was the WBO light heavyweight champion of the world. And this year, because of COVID-19, he didn't face anybody. He was going to face Billy Joe Saunders. Now, what I found out from just doing a little bit of homework and a little bit of research, and you guys can chime in the chat area if you want to and say your piece. Is KP from KC5. Shout out to KP from KC5. How are you doing, my brother? KP from KC5 says, how were they going to make money off a subscription service? The business model made no sense. It's like asking HBO to buy the high guarantee without pay-per-view revenue. Well, DAZN is a subscription service. So the more subscribers they have is the much more money they turn over every single month. DAZN is not unique to America. It's a global organization, and that's why they have so much money to pump into, give big purses to attract buyers. And then they were just trying to get more subscribers in the North American market. But they are a global service, and DAZN is not limited to boxing, sort of like ESPN. In the North American area, it's kind of limited to boxing, but globally, it's involved in a plethora of sports. So it's a streaming service. So what they were trying to do to attract buyers in the streaming service is give them these beautiful packages to attract them. And apparently they budgeted for that. So I don't think DAZN is going to run out of money anytime soon, but at the same time, they're trying to invest into a certain market. But that's not the issue here. The issue here is not whether DAZN could pay Canelo or not. They can pay Canelo. Okay, so we'll go into it in a little bit more detail, and I'll explain to you what I mean. I'll go into that topic, but I just want to get the viewers first, KP from KC, a bit familiar with what this situation is and why Canelo is suing. and suing Goldenboy. Not just DAZN, he's suing Goldenboy as well. I'll explain to you what's going on. So The Atlantic was the first press that actually reported on this. And of course, BoxingScene.com also has reported on it. The Atlantic has some details that BoxingScene.com doesn't have, and so on. But basically, and it was Mike Coppinger who cracked the story. Dan Raphael did do a piece in BoxingScene.com. But to get back to the point at hand. So one premier fighter per year Canelo was supposed to face on DAZN. And DAZN disqualified Billy Joe Saunders and Callum Smith as premier opposition that Canelo could face in 2020. And DAZN said that Canelo, because he's not facing premier opponents, they're going to slash his purse, his guaranteed purse, for his upcoming fight in half. So instead of $40 million, he's going to get $20 million. Canelo was willing to make concessions, given COVID and everything, but he said that slash was too low. Now, not only did DAZN say that Canelo did not face is not facing premier opposition in Callum Smith or Billy Joe Saunders or Demetrius Andrade, but they said also that he hasn't faced premier opposition in 2019. They said Sergey Kovalev wasn't premier opposition and Danny Jacobs wasn't premier opposition. So it shows you almost immediately, if you think about it, that's ridiculous, right? Anybody who knows boxing knows those guys are premier opposition. So where is DAZN coming from? And the articles go back to say how Canelo in 2019, DAZN wanted Canelo to face Triple G, not Sergey Kovalev, as after he had beaten Daniel Jacobs. And if you do think about it, at the beginning of the year, Canelo had won the IBF title, he had the WBC, and he had the WBA. All he needed was one more title, the WBO. And at the beginning of the year, Canelo was heard saying that he wanted to unify all the titles. But then the strangest thing happened. From after he had beaten Danny Jacobs, there was a certain grace period in which Canelo had to decide, or Goldenboy at least had to negotiate for him, the next upcoming fight, because Goldenboy presents to DAZN the name of the fighters they want to fight. There's a bunch of stuff going on in here that I need to explain. So Goldenboy dropped the ball on who Canelo was supposed to face next, because if it was known what Canelo was going to face next, they could have had a voluntary. They could have had a voluntary and then gone into the defense for the IBF title. Goldenboy dropped the ball on who Canelo was facing next and also requesting a voluntary. So Canelo ended up losing the IBF title, to which Gennady Golovkin won that title. I think it was either just before or just after Canelo had faced Sergey Kovalev. What's even more interesting is, and this is where this whole thing starts to get murky, but interesting nonetheless, Canelo was heard saying that he wanted to unify all the titles. All of a sudden, Canelo wasn't doing that anymore. And then his next target was Sergey Kovalev. I found it very strange because Sergey Kovalev at the time had Anthony Yarde in front of him, and no matter what Goldenboy was trying to do to pay off Anthony Yarde, Anthony Yarde wanted his shot, and he got a shot. So my thing is this. Canelo was angry with Goldenboy when Goldenboy dropped the ball on him being able to retain his IBF title, which he couldn't retain with Derevyanchenko either, because he couldn't give Derevyanchenko step aside money. And then on top of that, the time was burning out for which they could negotiate an agreement to make the fight happen. So Canelo ended up losing. Not only did he lose the IBF belt, but he also lost the opportunity to become undisputed, which would have been Demetrius Andrade, which he should have faced. And I don't know if he wanted to face Demetrius Andrade, because later on I heard him saying some other things about Demetrius Andrade was boring and stuff, which I couldn't understand why he would say something stupid like that, but he did. And then that was when he was having the Sergey Kovalev. Anyway, the point is, Golden Boy dropped the ball there. And I remember it was a big stink, and Canelo was talking about it, and one of the people, he mentioned the name, he actually mentioned the name of the person who dropped the ball on it. Before that, we found out later on that Golden Boy, and this is part of Canelo's statement to the courts, Golden Boy wanted Canelo to face Gennady Golovkin, and somebody from Golden Boy made a promise to the DAZN that Canelo would face Golovkin. That's why Golovkin signed on to the DAZN with this big package deal. And the premier boxer, there's only one that the DAZN wants Canelo to face is Gennady Golovkin, who, by the way, was able to fight a dud as well, like how Canelo had his dud, worse dud than what Canelo had. Some undefeated guy named Steve, what was it, Steve Long or something? I can't remember. Guy's from my country, but I don't even remember. You know, I conveniently forget names of insignificant people. But then after that, he did face Derevyanchenko for the belt that Canelo was stripped of, the IBF title. So he actually had an IBF title. Now, you could say that Golden Boy sabotaged Canelo so that Gennady Golovkin could get the IBF title, whatever you want to think about it. But between that time and now, Canelo has given up the WBC title, where he should have faced Jamal Charlo. Apparently, he didn't face him. And he went up and faced Sergey Kovalev. He got the stupid franchise title, which is nonsense. But here's my point. And it was mentioned in Canelo's statement to the courts, to the lawyers. Point number one is Golden Boy went into an agreement with DAZN, Canelo's arguing, that was not an agreement with Canelo's company and Golden Boy. Okay, Canelo actually has a promotion company himself, Canelo Promotions. So Canelo Promotions, who has as their premier boxer Canelo, never made an agreement with Golden Boy to be obligated to any fight or any particular person. Golden Boy goes, and somebody in Golden Boy seems to have pledged that they will get the Triple G and Canelo fight. Hence the language from DAZN about premier opponents and premier fights. Okay, so that this whole issue is not even on money. DAZN can pay out whoever they want to pay out because they're an international premier network. So they can pay, they got money to pay and do that. No, their thing is that whoever promised them from Golden Boy that they would get this premier fight, they didn't get it. And so as a result of that, this is how they're coming down on Golden Boy and hence Canelo. Because there's no way in God's green earth that Billy Joe Saunders, Callum Smith, fucking Danny Jacobs, or Sergey Kovalev are not premier fighters. They're premier fighters, but apparently DAZN doesn't think so. The only premier fighter they think it is, because they paid him so much money, is Triple G, right? So they wanted to see the Canelo Triple G fight, and this is either a lashback or whatever that DAZN is having against a guy like Canelo. So Canelo decided, one, he's going to carry them to court. Now, there's another thing that Golden Boy did, which Canelo's, again, company seems to have an issue with. Canelo has already also put to the court that he wants to be freed. He wants to be reimbursed of his $280 million for the contract that has been breached between himself and Golden Boy, and therefore himself and DAZN. But he doesn't really have a connection to DAZN. It will be with Golden Boy. Here's the thing with DAZN is there was never supposed to be any sort of because there was no agreement contractually between him and Goldenboy that DAZN would approve his opponents. See, Goldenboy fucked up big time, okay? Because Goldenboy has a separate, different agreement with DAZN than they have with Canelo, which should never happen. How it's wired up is like this. Canelo is supposed to be able to pick his own opponents. That's the agreement he had with Goldenboy, and it's stated in legal terms, right? DAZN all of a sudden is approving these opponents, which Canelo was supposed to be able to pick his own opponents and agree with Goldenboy. That was the agreement between Canelo and Goldenboy. Now, Goldenboy and the network DAZN, they have a separate agreement. So Canelo and Goldenboy have one agreement, and Goldenboy and DAZN have a different agreement. So because of breach of contract between Canelo and Goldenboy, and therefore there's breach of contract between Canelo and DAZN. And on top of that, there's breach of contract between Goldenboy and DAZN. So what's happening is, because the terms of the premier opponent have never been clearly stated. There was never a clarification on what a premier opponent was. So as a result of that, that's subject to interpretation, which means that Canelo is suing them for the amount, and also the lawyer fees and all of these other things, and also for gate and all of that stuff. He's suing them for everything, and he's suing Goldenboy because Goldenboy did not represent him correctly, and they have we call it forgery, and there's falsified information, and so on and so on and so on, etc., etc., etc. So Canelo, this whole issue stems from the Gennady Golovkin issue. Somebody pledged to DAZN that they were going to get this trilogy, this third fight between Canelo and Goldenboy. And if you listen carefully to Oscar De La Hoya, every time he goes on and broadcasts, he always talks about Canelo versus Golovkin, even though Canelo says, I'm not interested in that. DAZN was supposed to have the Billy Joe Saunders fight with Canelo, and then at the end of this year, it was supposed to be the Golovkin fight. They didn't get that. COVID-19 separated. There is supposed to be, between Goldenboy and Canelo, Goldenboy was trying to negotiate, let's no fight this year because of COVID-19, and Canelo was resumed next year. DAZN want to hear that. So at the end of the day, and Goldenboy tried to pursue to get a fight this year. DAZN has been continuously, and I was listening to the Boxing Voice, and it's true. People on the Boxing Voice have whoever's managing DAZN doesn't know shit about boxing. They just don't understand boxing at all. They were hell-bent on having a Canelo versus Gennady Golovkin 3, which they probably will never have. Canelo had ordered Goldenboy to get other broadcasters. Start finding them. Goldenboy hasn't found any yet. So Canelo may be on his own to find his own broadcaster. This is why he put out the lawsuit against Goldenboy and against DAZN, so that it frees him up to go with whatever broadcaster he wants to go with. Okay? And also free himself of Goldenboy, because Goldenboy has been impeding him, and Goldenboy has been like, they've been at loggerheads for a while. Ryan Garcia is the same thing. Ryan Garcia has these loggerheads with Goldenboy. And if you think about it, you know, I was listening to Dante's Boxing Nation. He was talking about how it seems as though Canelo doesn't want to take the serious fights or the hard fights. That's bullshit. Okay? We know Canelo from God knows when, and he took the Arislandi fight. He picked that. He picked Austin Trout. Okay? He picked Floyd Mayweather. Okay? So that's bullshit that he doesn't want the hard fights. He does have an easy fight in between his hard fights. That's bullshit, though. So I don't agree with Dante Boxing Nation, and that doesn't sound like Canelo. And from the last couple of months, I've been seeing some weird ass shit going down. And I was thinking to myself, why is this weird stuff that Canelo's not behaving like himself? It's Goldenboy. They've been fucking up everything. And now he put a lawsuit against Goldenboy, just as I expected. Now it makes sense. And DAZN, okay? Because DAZN don't seem to know shit about boxing, and they don't even know what a premier boxer is, okay? And so it's like, all they know is Triple G, because they paid a whole set of money for Triple G. You know what I'm saying? That's not Canelo's fault that you paid a whole set of money for Triple G. That's between you And Goldenboy, Oscar De La Hoya, and yourself, you decided that you're going to pay Triple G all this money because you thought you could get trilogy, right? And that's all they were focused on, because obviously these people run the zone, don't know fucking shit about boxing. Okay, so Canelo be fighting two very good opponents. He fought Danny Jacobs. He fought Sergey Kovalev. These guys are premier guys. They're names. Okay, but what did fucking DAZN do? They ran MMA. Remember, they had MMA before Canelo versus Golovkin. You guys remember that? That shows you how fucking clueless they were. Okay. So anyway, KP from KC5 says he should go to Fox and Fox Deportes for PPV in English and Spanish. Yeah, it looks like Al Heyman is trying to help out Canelo and get him across to the PBC or Showtime. It looks like Canelo might move across to Showtime, and he might have to face Yildirim, which is a substandard opponent who I don't really want to see. But then once he goes across to Showtime, he'll have Caleb Plant, he'll have Jamal Charlo, and he'll have David Benavidez, and a host of other 168 pounders that are good 168 pounders in that division. So, you know, you fuck with Canelo, Canelo will mess you up. You know what I'm saying? Don't fuck with Canelo. Canelo's his own man, and he will sue your ass, and he doesn't have a problem waiting to collect his paycheck. You know what I mean? DAZN breached their contract. What DAZN needs to do, because he put a lawsuit against them, is how they can solve this problem, and because Canelo don't fuck around, is they need to chop, pay the man his money, and set it up for the opponent. And then next year they'll get the Triple G fight. You know, if they meet his graces. Canelo don't fuck around. Okay, Canelo ain't fucking around with his career. He's not fucking around. He will just drop a lawsuit in your ass and keep it moving. Okay, he trained in the gym same way. He gonna have a fight because Al Heyman, he came from Showtime. We forget this. Canelo was on Showtime. He moved across, did a contract with HBO, right? Because he wanted to face Triple G. That's why he went across to HBO. Went across to HBO. Anyway, he got the belt from Cotto. He fought a 154 pounder, which was stupid, Liam Smith, and then he went up and I think he fought Pulisic Chavez Jr. and then he fought Triple G, right? My thing is this. Okay, now Canelo been having rips with Goldenboy for the longest time. Goldenboy been fucking Canelo up. Okay, Canelo should have had his IBF title. Should have fought Demetrius Andrade and clean up slate at 160, and then he should have just moved up to 168. That's what it should have happened. That's what Canelo was talking about. And Demetrius Andrade was the WBO champion when Canelo was talking about being undisputed. So he knew he was going to face Demetrius Andrade. For some reason, Goldenboy fucked that up. Okay, it got fucked up, and after he lost his IBF title, he wasn't talking about Demetrius Andrade anymore. He wasn't talking about unifying anymore. And he started shooting for Sergey Kovalev. Okay, or whatever the fuck has happened. I don't know. But I may be wrong in my timelines. But my point is this. That, you know, these are the things that happen. So, you know, looked like a big payday, but he couldn't finish his contracted agreement. Okay? Now, you can't totally blame Canelo because of the COVID-19 that's been screwing up everything. But still, at the same time, it's ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? That this situation came to that. And the fact that DAZN does not seem to understand what moves the needle. It's sad. It's sad. You know, what moves the needle in the United States? They don't understand it, which is sad because their subscription service is dope. And, you know, they had a good thing going, you know, good commentators for the most part. You had Sergio Moro up in there. You know, people who were working with the PBC were also working with DAZN. You know, it could have been something good. You know what I'm saying? Now, there are a lot of people who was trashing DAZN, hating on DAZN, talking about their fights with crap and stuff. The worst set of fucking fights on television was ESPN. ESPN wasn't giving you nothing. They gave you Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder. And what else? Think about it. DAZN's been giving you constantly good product, good stuff. Christopher Smith says Canelo versus Saunders on Android are fights we never got to see. Well, you know, Christopher, man, I feel bad for you. I feel bad for everybody. The Saunders fight almost happened this year, and then COVID kind of came through, but Saunders was also kind of screwing it over with the comments he made in COVID and the woman beating thing. But then on top of that, I don't know what's going to happen to Demetrius Andrade and a lot of other guys. It looks shaky, but you never know. You never know. I did want to see Andrade versus Canelo. I was pushing for that. I don't know, man. I don't know. See, my thing is this. My thing is this. Those guys are signed with Matchroom, so it doesn't really matter. But and I think Billy Joe Saunders, he's looking to face Demetrius Andrade. If he and Demetrius Andrade could get the fight on, that'd be good. It's a good fight. But my thing is this. You can't be making contracts with people and making agreements with people on things your client who works under you is not cognizant of. You know, you can't be doing that because you're the middleman between your client and the broadcaster. You know, they made promises that they could not keep. They were trying to steer the thing in the direction of Triple G versus Canelo. So they got Triple G a belt and they fucked Canelo over. And Canelo really wanted to unify the belts, but they fucked Canelo over. And I bet you it's Goldenboy that fucked Canelo over. Because Canelo would have gone for that Demetrius Andrade fight. But they fucked him over, waited it out, so he got stripped of a title so the fucking Gennady Golovkin could get the title. That's what happened. Goldenboy fucked Canelo over. I'm telling you. Saunders wants Callum Smith at the moment. All right, well, he said Callum Smith or Demetrius Andrade. He said. They're both Matchroom. All of those guys are Matchroom, so it doesn't really matter if the zone is there or not. They're Matchroom fighters. The only thing is Andrade's all the way across in the United States, whereas Saunders, Callum Smith, they're across the pond in the UK. But it is what it is. I mean, you know, I would like to still have the zone subscription service working. But the way how the zone is behaving, you know, how can you do that to your premier champion, man? Canelo. How can you do that to him? You know, the one fight that I didn't like was the Rocky Fielding fight. That was a stupid fight. Okay. Well, all the other opponents Canelo has had, the other two opponents that Canelo has had, they're premier opponents. What the fuck is wrong with the zone? They're world champions and shit. And they feel, I mean, the highest grossing, the highest amount of subscriptions and the highest viewership that the zone has gotten is with Canelo versus Daniel Jacobs. Not even Sergey Kovalev touched Canelo versus Daniel Jacobs numbers. That's the highest numbers Canelo's gotten. And the highest numbers of subscription services got. So I don't understand how the zone could be so stupid. If Canelo versus Callum Smith or Demetrius Andrade or Billy Joe Saunders happened, again, they would have gotten a lot more subscribers because the people who actually care about fucking boxing would have subscribed to them. You know what I'm saying? And now the people who have subscribed to the zone, what does that mean? You know, the zone, these people don't know how to fucking manage their business. It's clear. You know, it's pathetic, man. But anyway, this is what I got for you guys. Poopy Sister asked me to do a video on this, so I'm doing it. The other videos I want to do, I don't think I'm going to do the Gary Russell Jr. versus Devin Haney, because I don't think that fight's going to happen. Because Haney's camp and they sent back they signed their end of the contract and sent it to Gary Russell Jr. I don't know if Gary Russell Jr. is going to look it over and actually agree to it or not. I was listening to Zahir Rahim on Blue Blood Sports TV. Man, that dude, man, is just breaking knowledge, man, nonstop knowledge. Those who don't know, Zahir Rahim beat Eric Morales, and he beat some other known names. Never became a world champion, but hell of a fighter. And he was just talking about, you know, boxing, you know, how boxing's not for the toughest guys out there. Boxing's a sport for the humblest, you know, he started talking some shit, man. I mean, he was really getting it deep. You know what I'm saying? on, on so much shit. I can't even start to scratch the surface. And that was awesome. If you guys haven't checked it out, check out Blue Blood interview with Zahir Rahim. Came up with Floyd Mayweather and those guys, Zahir Rahim and you know, the 96 Olympic team and that kind of shit. Antonio Tarver, all them guys. You know, if you watch it, look at the 96 Olympic team, okay? These were the guys on the 96 Olympic team, right? Mayweather. There was Juan Diaz. There was Zahir Rahim, Antonio Tarver. Shit, I forgot the guy's name. He was training Zab Judah for a minute. And then he did some training of some other guys. I'm trying to remember his name right now. He also got an Islamic name. Who else? Who else we got, man? Who else we got over there? But all those guys, man, they break some serious knowledge. Anyway, all I gotta say is, I don't think I'm gonna talk about the Devin Haney versus Gary Russell Jr. Fight unless a date is announced and they really have agreed and signed a contract. I'm not gonna talk about that because, to me, I think that's just not a good fight for Gary Russell Jr. Some people will say, well, Gary Russell Jr. is real beast, real dog and everything. Devin Haney's. I'm going to just say this, that Zahir Rahim, you know, I respect him. But I don't think that Gary Russell Jr. would beat Devin Haney. I just don't think so. He's just way too big. If you think that Teofimo Lopez is too big for Lomachenko, and fucking Devin Haney is huge. Devin Haney right now could easily fight at 140. Easy. You know, because he's a big 135 pounder. He moves like a cat. He's quick. He's a little bit sloppy with some of those punches, but that's because of trying to get the turnover. And but he can box his head off. And he's much longer than Gary Russell Jr. You know, it's just Holy Inferno. What's up, my brother? Holy Inferno says. So let me hold on. Let me just talk about Christopher Smith here. So Saunders wants Count Smith at the moment. Holy Inferno says, when has Canelo simply beat a prime undefeated champion? Well, there's Austin Trout, who's a prime undefeated world champion. Austin Trout, coming off the win off Amigo Cotto, undefeated. I think he had 5 defenses of his WBA title. They fought for unification. And he beat Austin Trout. Dropped him and started out boxing later on. So when has he faced a prime undefeated fighter? He has faced Austin Trout, is one of them. I don't really want to talk about Liam Smith. Liam Smith was also undefeated. He was in his prime, but I don't really give a fuck about Liam Smith. Like Liam Smith, no disrespect to Liam Smith, hardworking guy, became world champion, whatever. But the Smith brothers, Callum Smith's younger brother, etc. But I don't really talk about Liam Smith because I don't consider Liam Smith like a top tier kind of guy. He just became world champion and all that stuff. And Canelo just went down to 154 to say, I can make 154. You know, just to say, I'm out of middleweight. And then he went out and basically his job. Yeah, but he faced, you know, he faced some prime undefeated fighters. He has faced prime undefeated, not world champions. He's only faced 2. But he has faced prime undefeated fighters. He's also faced prime fighters. So Erislandy Lara, hell yes, he was. Erislandy Lara was like the next best super welterweight. When Erislandy Lara was calling out Floyd, and then Canelo faced Erislandy Lara. I think it was in 2015 when Floyd was facing Pacquiao, something like that. I think Canelo faced Erislandy Lara, and you know the rest. The rest is history. And of course, Danny Jacobs is the other prime fighter. He's not undefeated, but he was a prime. He was world champion. Just became world champion, beating Sergey Derevyanchenko, who's going to face Jamal Charlo, by the way. So anybody saying Danny Jacobs, he can't box, you know, slave. Listen, man, Danny Jacobs is the first guy to beat Derevyanchenko. Derevyanchenko had not been defeated. Derevyanchenko is the guy to beat Triple G in the amateurs, and arguably beat him in the pros as well. So, you know, that's no easy guy to beat. And Danny Jacobs beat him. And then Canelo came and just outboxed Danny Jacobs. Danny Jacobs came back later on in the fight, but for the most part, it was very nice defensive display by both fighters. You know, and now they say, oh, you know, Danny Jacobs, he's just a quick fighter. But when Canelo was in front of Danny Jacobs, everybody would say, oh, he's going to duck Danny Jacobs. It's really funny how fans are so fucking fickle, man. Anyways, man, what you need in the building, I'm going to get out of here. Shout out to Holy Inferno, Christopher Smith, KP from KC, my dude. I'm going to catch you guys later. Peace out. I got one more video that I want to talk to you guys about. And that is Ryan Garcia versus Luke Campbell, which may not happen. But it has already been ordered by the WBC. So I don't know what platform they'll be on. Maybe it'll still be on DAZN. Maybe it won't. But what I do know is Ryan Garcia has to face Luke Campbell. And it's been mandated by the WBC. They made their agreements. They signed their contracts. So it's on like Donkey Kong. So I'm going to talk to you guys about that one later. Once again, for those of you who didn't watch my video before, you might want to watch that Lomachenko versus Teofimo Lopez breakdown that I gave you guys. Remember, as gifted and as skilled as Lomachenko is, he is limited by one thing: range. Teofimo Lopez, he does have a longer reach than Lomachenko. He's a little bit taller than Lomachenko. So I think those things make a big difference in fighting. Now, I'll talk more about that some other time. But in the meantime, I hope you guys have a good one. What you need in the building, about to get out of here. When you guys ready, you're going to see my next video. My next video is going to be on Ryan Garcia versus Ryan Garcia. In fact, I'm coming back on just in a second. Ryan Garcia versus Luke. All right, man. Peace.